Well, good morning and welcome to another week on my allotment. And if you're new to my channel, if you've stumbled upon it by accident and wondering what the hell this fella's doing, please hit the like button if you like what you see, and subscribe and come along for the journey. I'll just start off. It's nothing about coronavirus, relax. But I know I've had coronavirus overload because I glanced at the BBC News this morning and reading the headlines, I stumbled upon a bit that said that Gaza hasn't got the resources to deal with coronavirus. And I thought, well, that's unusual. He was a professional footballer. He earned millions. I mean, he should have enough money to deal with it. And then I realised it was Gaza, not Gaza. I'm not laughing at the fact that Gaza may or may not have resources. I'm laughing at my own inability to read a headline. So, let's move away from that. What's going on the plot? Well, I would like to shout it from the rooftops if there were any around here. Good news on the plot. So let's stop waffling and let's cut now, and I'll show you the little packages of good news. A lot more bags of these. A nice few wheelbarrowfuls of this stuff. And a few more of these. I was driving from one job to another right at the beginning of this week, and I went past the churchyard, and there were chainsaws making an awful lot of noise in this churchyard, and there was a tree surgeon in there, and I could see he had a chipper shooting the chippings into the back of his lorry, as they do. Anyway, I had to get to this next job. Timings are important to me. I like to be trustworthy and reliable. So I had to carry on, and about an hour and a half later I was driving back and they were still in there. So I walked into the churchyard, and it wasn't a churchyard, a cemetery, and had a word with him, and he said, help yourself. I'm tipping him on this massive pile of waste that they pile up in a corner out of sight. He says, they're there, help yourself. So I drove my van in, backed up to it and filled all my bags with chippings, and I've made 2 further trips, and now behind me the whole of my allotment, apart from one small patch behind the compost heaps, but this main area, these 2 allotments adjacent to each other, they are now completely chipped. All the paths are covered. The only thing I have yet to do is 2 of the little sideways paths. I'm bricking them, if you'll pardon the phrase, and I don't have enough bricks, and I collect bricks as and when I find them, and I'm not in a rush to do that. You know, the wet weather is a long way off, hopefully. So yeah, I am chuffed to bits. I cannot begin to tell you how pleased I am. I can tell you how OCD I've become. The one slight downside to all this is they're not the same colour as all the other chippings, but in time they will become so. Anyway, I'm thrilled to bits that is all done. And the farmer's finally come good with the manure. Not a lot of it, I have to say, but what he has brought is at least 2 years old, and it almost isn't recognisable as manure. It's bloody lovely stuff. You've got to get it's been piled up for over 2 years, right at the top of this hill. I can see it now. I'm looking at it, and it's obviously full of couch grass. The whole of it is covered like a big grass mound. So there's a bit of picking to be done, but a little bit of time, bit of patience, which I'm not good at. And I've now done 2 of my beds that are lower than I would like. So yeah, this week's been a turning point, and I feel, instead of that sort of yearning to get things done, I'm now calm, comfortable with how things are, and now it's all about the plants. Oh yeah, and raising a few more beds. So as the sun comes up on this beautiful day, I'm going to put the kettle on, and I'm going to start shifting manure, because whilst there's 18 or 19 other, in fact more than that, plot holders here, fortune favours the brave, first up best dress, and I avoid cliches like the plague. Right, let's get some work done. Kelly kettle. Well, the Kelly kettle's on. Cup of tea is imminent. And while we wait for that, and I say we, I mean me, I know you're absolutely dying for the next piece of niff-naff and trivia. So, and if you wonder why a lot of this is to do with the Royal Navy, the first point to make is actually a lot of these phrases in our social fabric and history were devised at the time of the Royal Navy at its peak. So the next one is, if you've ever wondered why they say usually about a boss, oh, he runs a tight ship. Well, back in the day, the ships of the line, they didn't use nails and screws to hold ships together. They would make joints and then push wooden wedges in and hammer the wedges in, and that would brace the ship and make it tight. And that was the phrase used. When these wedges were banged in, the joints and therefore the ship were tight. And the ship's carpenter, every morning, his first job was to walk around the ship with his apprentice and make sure that, with a bloody great hammer, bang in these wedges, because over time and the seas and so on, the joints came loose, and he would re-knock in these wedges and re-tighten the ship. Now, on a well-run, disciplined vessel, that was done every day without fail, and the ship remained tight. If the captain wasn't quite as efficient and in command of things, maybe the ship's carpenter wouldn't do it so often, and the ship would start to get a bit loose and let in a bit of water, and so on and so forth. So to run a tight ship means to keep all your wedges tight and the ship braced. Fascinating, I know. Fire, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Even on a hot day. One other thing I'm going to do today is one of my neighbours, they haven't been up here for some time. I think they're probably just socially isolating, staying at home. So their grass is becoming almost unmanageable. So it's going to take a bit of time, but I've got all day up here, and there's only so much I can do on my plot. So to have a break, I've got to cut my own little bits of grass that remain. I'll cut theirs and might have a look at that when I do it. Yes, this is the best part of the day. The first brew, out of shot, the sun is coming up. I'll let you have a look at that in a second. This is the bit. I'm on my own. There's not a human being, I'm going to say, within half a kilometre of me. I have got the place to my... Oh, my back's nice and warm. Ooh. Lovely. There we are. That's the view from my allotment shed, my man cave. And if you're Betty, it's your she shed. Well, the road's getting busier, despite what we're all being told. People going to work, I guess. Or if they've got any sense, going to their allotments. And while the sun comes up, you can now see how the paths are complete. The plot has never looked so good and yet so brown. It needs some plants to grow to green it up. Well, here's the mother lode, and I mean, we've waited 6 months for this, and there's not a lot of it for over 20 allotments. However, it's been brought to us, it's free, it's extremely well rotted. So, as I've said to you before, the secret of a happy life is to be easily pleased. And a big pile of well rotted manure makes me a happy man. So, let's get another bed done. Will you look at that? All out the back end of a cow. Superb stuff. Well, the sun is really starting to burn now. It really is going to be a scorcher. Better get my hat on soon. Just cover my solar panels. So this is Barry's plot. I just thought I'd stand in the centre of the site and give you a little tour. Or most people are starting to work their ground now that it's all dried up. John over in the far end there did a bit of the communal grass yesterday, so that's all looking nice. John, the John that I filmed in the past, John of the small leak, his plot is a thing of beauty. Steve and Nicky's plot here, that's the one I'm hoping to cut the grass on today because they haven't been up in a long time. The abandoned plot next to me, I say abandoned, the fella pays his dues every year. He usually puts in a little effort in the spring and then buggers off. Well, he hasn't even done that this year, so heaven only knows what will happen there. And then my two plots in the corner. I suppose from a social distancing point of view, it's good to have this green zone. It keeps me well separated and isolated, which I've always enjoyed. And there we are, we bring you back round full circle. Back to the immaculate bit of ground that is Barry and Margaret's plot. So hopefully this gives you an idea of what I'm trying to achieve with these lower beds. These were all top dressed in the autumn, but it was my own compost and it was only very thinly because I just can't produce enough to put a thick mulch on. And then over the winter these beds were almost virtually almost non-stop underwater. They've dried up now, however, by importing all this wonderful manure, and I'm going to dig it in, and I know I said I'd go no dig, but so be it. I'm going to dig it in, and then you can see the bores around it. Hopefully by the time I've finished, I'll be somewhere further up those boards so that when the winter comes this year, assuming we're allowed out to play again, this will better withstand the flooding. We'll see. Time will tell. Either way, even if it doesn't, importing this beautiful black gold is no bad thing. Now, those of you that follow me regularly will know that my parsnips all rotted off in these beds last year because of the heavy rain. So I thought I'd try something slightly different this year, and I'm still going to put some in the ground and hope for the best, but I thought I'd try some in a tub, and this has had lots of horticultural sand added in to give the parsnips a nice straight root run hopefully. And I've chitted the parsnips in my airing cupboard in some damp kitchen paper. They've been in there just under a week, and they haven't got the little roots coming off them yet, but I'm going to have confidence and optimism and say that they're a day or two off having that. So I'm simply going to, one by one, add these little seeds, which are quite easy to handle, he says, and I'm going to put too many in here with a view to thinning them out if and when they do germinate. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll let you see the final end result. Okay, so that's the seeds liberally scattered. And I'm just going to lightly cover with some normal compost. Right. Well, those are parsnip white gem, so I'm going to go and make a label, stick that in, and we shall see what happens. Although I'm in my 4th year, this really is every year a certain amount of trial and error as to how I grow things and what works and what doesn't. And the 2 things I have yet to crack, both root vegetables, carrots and parsnips. I have not had a good crop of either yet. So that's certainly a main aim for this year. And of course, a tub like this isn't going to give me and my wife a large crop, but if this works, then I might invest in a few more tubs and some horticultural sand. We shall see. Grow. Right, these tubs are for the carrots. I grew carrots in them last year, but the carrots didn't really grow very big. And I'm wondering if it's because the level down here, they don't get the sunshine that they should, even in this exposed position. So I've already sown seeds in this one, so that one's gone before I thought of the idea. So I've got some of this manure, and I'll put the manure in the bottom, put the sandy soil back in, and hopefully bring the level closer to the rim of the barrel, and then they'll be more exposed to the sun. We'll see, and I'll compare the two. Okay, so that one you can see is about 5-6 inches down, and that's already been sown. This one, manure in the bottom, up far closer to the surface, and I found these carrots still in there, so they've been growing for nearly a year, and that's the size of them. Now I know they say size doesn't matter, however, there is a limit. Okay, so that's them sorted. I feel a lot happier now that the soil is nearer the top, and I didn't think of the idea until after I'd sown those early non-tea too. But I shall be interested to see how the tubs compare. Good Friday and social distancing at its very best. Well, that's my good deed for the day done. Steve and Nikki's plot mown. Well, it's mid to late afternoon. I've had a good day up here. It's been scorchio. So what have I done? Well, filled that bed with onions. Brought over as much usable compost as I could. It's now riddled with couch grass, and for me it's more trouble than it's worth. But that bed over there I've filled up and put out all my beetroot. It's another bed there with onions. I've done a bit of hoeing, and even more onions over there. I have said in the past we do use a lot of onions. I've put my first cauliflowers out. I think they're big enough now, and I put some lime in the planting holes to try and keep the club root at bay. Lots more watering. Broad beans are coming on, and I've got more in the cold frames developing. That blueberry's an absolute picture. And then to the seed production centre. I'm going to leave those doors up, risk having them tied up. I'll put netting over to try and keep the mice and the rats off, and give this stuff a chance to stay reasonably cool, and we'll see what happens. So and those tubs there are all full of carrot seeds. So a good day, a productive day, and it's coming on nicely. The only negative in the whole thing is the raspberry bed. And talking to Bridget, she did say she's got some summer fruiting raspberry canes for me that she doesn't want, so I'm going to have some replacement raspberries, but she suggested moving them, because if that's going to flood I should try and find an alternative site for them, maybe with a bit of shade. That might prove difficult, so I shall have to evaluate that. But I picked the canes up on Monday. Oh, wow, what a hot one. After months of sitting in here, huddling up to the stove, it's actually baking in here. But I'm finished for the day, achieved all I'm going to achieve today. The nice thing about the place I'm at the moment is that the beds are all ready, and it's just a matter now of bringing the seedlings on. So as the seedlings turn into reasonably sized plants that I think are big enough to withstand the onslaught of the pests, the ground is ready for them. It's warmed up, it's broken up. I've raised all the beds I'm going to with that compost, that manure. So I'm very happy with where I'm at. And I've watched other vloggers and I can see some of them are way ahead of me and others are behind me. Isn't that always the state of play? So if you've managed to see this through to the end, well done. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all those who've subscribed, I appreciate it. And I think it's going to get a bit colder in the week, or less hot anyway. We shall see what that brings. But thanks for watching, look after yourselves, and I shall see you again next week. Bye for now.